Hey everyone, I have some terrible news. I recently learned that I am a Path of Exile 2 tourist because I don't meet the criteria to be considered a real creator with an opinion. So, to avoid getting arrested by the Path of Exile 2 opinion gatekeeping police, this is just a wheel build video. It's definitely no opinions here, it's just a wheel build, nothing to see here. And with that said, let's dive in because the real question is Frost Darts a tourist trap or not? I hope you're all enjoying Path of Exile 2. I've been playing a lot actually, but primarily I was working on my mobalytics guide. That took a bit of priority, but now I'm back to the videos and I will try to remain consistent with the wheel builds. So I spun the wheel, you just saw that, and we're gonna play Frost Darts. I am not aware of what this skill does, and neither is the wiki, it seems. That isn't a good sign usually. That means I can't do much in terms of preparation, even if I wanted to. I did log into my main character and saw the skill was under the Sorceress class, and I will be using that then. I feel spinning the wheel on a random class in Path of Exile 2 for now is just increasing the suffering for no reason. So I'm gonna stick to just one wheel and I'm gonna play a class that at least makes a bit of sense. To me, that is. Time to create a sorceress and start playing. The beach is my first stop and I get an ashen staff. From a chest I get spark, meaning I have fireball for some single target and spark for clear. When fighting the bloated miller, I noticed the changes to ignite and flammability straight away. Rather than simply igniting, you cause flammability, which at some point ignites the boss at 100%. I got no clue why Grinding Gear Games makes a change like this. It is needlessly complicating a mechanic that works perfectly fine otherwise. I thought this game was supposed to be simpler than Path of Exile 1. I open the new passive tree, take my first point, equip 2 gear pieces and decide to take Frostbomb for now. At the camp, where I get another skill gem, you see the new remnant interactions. Frostbomb leaves a cold remnant, which in turn infuses spark with cold damage. In theory this is cool, in practice, well, keep watching. It's time for the Devourer and here you see that infusion mechanic in action. But pretty much immediately at this point, it is tedious to use and it is more of combo gameplay. First drop a Frostbomb, wait for it to detonate, pick up the remnant and then use the correct skill afterwards so that it gets infused. It's a lot of work for not many games, at least for now. If I want this mechanic to be viable, I can already tell it requires significant investment. If you ignore it, like I do, there are no issues whatsoever for now at least, as I do enough damage with just fireball and spark. I get a great new staff, it is in the cold theme as well. I upgrade spark as it is the main skill that I use currently and I get rapid casting 1 for my weapon skill. The bramble ghast goes down without any issues. I get frostbomb level 2, reach level 6, take a bunch of generic spell damage nodes and I do a bit of abyss. I think it's an amazing league mechanic, it's so much better than it is in Path of Exile 1 and it's very rewarding too. Since the latest patch is not so rippy anymore, I absolutely love it. I kill the Rust King, equip a rare iron ring, get a level 3 skill gem and that means I can get my wheel skill, Frost Darts. Here's how it works according to GGG.
Frost Darts fires multiple icy projectiles that create explosive fragments on hitting a chilled or frozen enemy. It can also consume a cold infusion to make the darts themselves explode.
So the synergy is clear, I think. I need to chill or freeze monsters, so the frost darts create ice chunks, ideally pick up a cold infusion so the darts explode and then I use the skill. The vision is strong in this one. And of course we can't make it too easy so the skill itself doesn't chill or freeze. Imagine a one button build guys, no. So this requires other skills used before I can use it in true Path of Exile 2 fashion. I try it out without enemies around for a bit so you can see it over here, so far so good. I get 2 support gems from the quests. I link rapid casting that I already had to Frost Darts and I go through the list of options. I compare a few options but ultimately land on Unleash. Seems like a solid choice, storing some charges and then unleashing all of them on chilled or frozen enemies. This is harder than it sounds, however. Here you see me in action during Abyss and I'm not chilling enemies and cold infusion remnant generation is quite poor. Only Frostbomb right now can get me those, and even when I meet the conditions, the skill does very little damage. Base damage of the skill is atrocious. A Flame Wall doesn't offer much solace. I decide to run Ice Nova instead. That pretty much always chills and often freezes. This way I can meet at least one condition and spawn ice chunks. I link Magnified Effect to Ice Nova, and here you see the synergy on the Druid. Ice Nova and then a barrage of Frost Darts and ice chunks falling all around him and damaging him. It works, I guess, as intended, as designed. As this seems viable, I support Ice Nova with Deep Freeze for more freeze effect. I get another Iron Ring, which is great because I do so much attack damage. Here you see me demolish and freeze and chill Abyss monsters, and it looks like a functioning build, but the looks can be deceiving and the Abyss monsters are still pre-nerf here, so I die. I craft a new staff, that is an upgrade, I get a new rare helmet, some gloves, and looking at the Asenia fight, I'm pretty happy with this, all things considered. I can keep up Chill permanently, Chill makes boss fights a lot easier, and the Frost Darts do some damage as well. I've seen much worse at this stage of the game. However, where this already starts to not work is with trash monsters. Using Frost Darts on them just does no damage, and having to do the whole combo first, it feels like a lot of work just to kill a white monster. Compared to bosses like Draven here, the ice chunks falling from the darts don't do well on trash monsters because they're so small. The chunks simply don't hit, whereas bosses are hit a lot by the chunks because their hitbox is much larger. Blackland dies quickly, I get a new belt, upgrade Ice Nova, here is some Crowbell action, and looking at this you might actually be under the impression this is a good build. I get some mana regen nodes and I'm just winging the passive tree as per usual, but then when starting the King of the Mists you can see the issues on regular monsters. They take a long time to die, and as this is mostly what you are doing, the build actually feels like a slog most of the time. The king does fall, however. I get my first aura and there aren't many options that make sense, so I just take Arctic Armor. It's thematically accurate, I guess I got that going for it. And I also upgrade Frost Darts to level 4. I decide to experiment a bit with the support gems, slotting in Pierce instead of Unleash. This works in the sense that the projectiles create chunks even when piercing. But other than that, I don't see that many advantages. Let's try multi-shot, the game recommends this after all, but it feels horrible. And then Magnified Effect, trying to scale the surface area of the chunks, but that doesn't do much either, so I go back to Unleash, I think that works best. The Executioner and his minions get chilled, frozen and die. It's a pretty quick fight all in all. I receive a Sapphire Charm, a level 5 skill gem, 2 passives which I spend on Gold Penetration. I decide to try out Frostbolts, linked to Rapid Casting and Multi-Shot to try and chill enemies from afar and then hit them with Frost Darts. And again, it does work, it just doesn't feel good to use. Plus the damage is lacking, as you can see in this Abyss. I decide to try out the Freeze Cold Snap combination, which also generates Cold Remnants, and I instantly die as I try to cast Cold Snap while the monsters aren't frozen. Here is what that roughly looks like on a rare monster who has a resistance aura, sure, but I still would expect to do a bit more damage than this. I for now let go of this Cold Snap idea and decide to keep it simple. Ice Nova for freeze and chill, Frost Bomb for remnants and elemental exposure, and then spam Frost Darts. This is still an amazing fight, of course, especially if you have to work for it a little bit. I feel that's true in general in Path of Exile too. For me at least, it's the most enjoyable when I'm struggling a little bit but not too much. Because this way you get to see all of his cool abilities, including the one where he summons these ice pillars from the sky. Out of all his abilities, I think this is the only one I feel is a little bit unfair because I can never tell where these things land. I also die on the first try, a little unfortunate he does a double swipe there behind his back, I wasn't expecting that, but the second time is the charm. I'm a little surprised at times how easy it is to chill and freeze bosses, even these guys, the pinnacle bosses effectively. I feel it's much easier than in Path of Exile 1, but I could be mistaken. The fight does take a while, but killing him also feels very rewarding, because I consider this still a pretty bad build. It's time for Act 2, which means dying to random enemies. I am not particularly tanky, I will say that, nor do I really deal damage when it comes to rares. I think the damage scaling on Frost Darts just isn't there, at this point at least. I die to Wrathbreaker, of course, This boss is quite difficult if you do no damage. On the second attempt, however, it all works out pretty well and he goes down. Back in base, I can buy a +2 staff. That's going to make a difference once I can equip it. Back in the field, I die again to something. And as I start using more and more skills, I'm going to switch to mouse and keyboard instead of WASD to see if that does anything. I support frost darts with considered casting for a lot more damage. I can equip the +2 staff. I forgot how this boss works and that I can't stand next to her when applying ice novas, and I forget the exact same thing 1 minute later. I barely dodge it the third time, but she does incinerate and die. The same is true for Balbala. I started using Cold Snap again, and the Ice Nova Cold Snap combination just feels so much better to use than Frost Darts. And I don't want to suffer all the way through the campaign and endgame, so I'm going to be a little bit more liberal with the wheel build and use the cold skills that make sense depending on the situation. For clearing and running through the maps, that is going to be Ice Nova and Cold Snap. For single target, Frost Darts are surprisingly good, especially on larger targets, because every chunk hits. I get some lightning resistance into the gear, I kill Kabbalah, get a lesser Jeweler's Orbs which I apply on Frost Darts, I identify a decent wand, and I have a focus too. Both of these have +1 dispels. Frost Darts now has Zenith 1, considered casting and unleash, but I keep changing and experimenting with the setup. For example, here I try cold penetration and multi-shot too, but multi-shot absolutely sucks on a skill that you have to cast yourself. It's time for the Death Lord and his steed, and of course I die, after which I'm kinda done with the character, and I farm a bit on my main Infernalist. It's a minion Andy. I was just having too good of a time on that character, however. I didn't record much footage, so I couldn't turn that into a 0 to hero. Apologies for that. But I do return on this character a day later, respec some passives, go back to WASD as I have simplified the skills that I'm using, and I finally managed to kill the boss. I do another respec, no more crit for now, just spell and deal mental damage. I drop Wanderlust, that is an upgrade, it's a nice twink item. And here's what walking through a zone looks like with Spell Echo on Ice Nova. It's not amazing, but it's a lot better than it was before. I fix some more resistances, I make it to Stormbreaker, I drop a level 8 Spirit Gem, and after some deliberation I take Siphon Elements for more infusion remnants. Here you can hopefully see that Frost Darts on an enemy this size does incredibly well. I slam a bunch of exalts that I have on gear, get some more resistances, and then it is time for some new crafting. I apply a Gnawed Collarbone to a belt. I realize I haven't actually unlocked the Well of Souls on this character, so here it is, the well, sort of hidden in the zone. After making it through the lightless passage, I arrive at the well, where a cute creature awaits me. I have 2 things to craft for now, but first I upgrade a chest piece with spirit on it. This extra spirit allows me to get some support gems for the Siphon Elements, so I get clarity for mana regen and mysticism for spell damage. After this, it's time to throw in my wand and let the creature bring it back. I do quite like the animation, even after a couple of times. I don't mind this at all, to be honest, but I am someone who can appreciate the immersion and aesthetics in Path of Exile 2, and as I play solo self-found, efficiency isn't top of the list either. Maybe I am a tourist after all. Damage gained as fire is the best I can do here, I believe, and then the belt fire resistance. If you craft multiple pieces, the animation stops, by the way. That is true for crafting Abyss maps as well in endgame, something I've done a lot, so if you save up the Abyss crafting and just go for a single session, it's way more efficient, and you only have to look at the animation once. It's time for the final boss of this episode. Yeah, I know it's only Act 2, but you know, I got a lot to talk about. I first upgraded my amulet last minute, and I slapped some exalted orbs on that thing. You may think you missed me ascending, but you didn't. I just forgot to do that, so I'm a sorceress, no ascendancies yet. The fight goes rather smoothly, however. This is a fight where I feel if you have a build that is just slightly worse than this one, you're absolutely screwed. And a build slightly worse than this one, that is not hard to do in Path of Exile 2, as many skills just feel bad to play. And I am talking from the perspective of someone that deleted more than a few previous wheel builds because I just couldn't complete the campaign on the skill that I rolled. If that is your League Start experience and you think you can just wing it with the majority of the skills out there, you're possibly in for a very rough time. It's something that grinding gear games needs to balance a bit more, I feel, because creating a campaign that is this challenging is a choice I can agree with, and it's also something I enjoy quite a bit, as it does provide a very different experience than basically any other ARPG out there. And if you don't play a meta top of the line skill like Frost Arts, this is especially true, then the game does become quite a bit more challenging. But I think as a consequence, skills should be viable to play, at least to some extent, at least during the campaign, so you can actually do this content and make it through the campaign without getting so frustrated that you want to quit. That boiling point will be different depending on the person, but as I can only speak for myself, I have reached this point a bit too often in Path of Exile 2, which actively discouraged me from making my own build by doing that, and made me look up a guide instead. And made me create one too, my Minion Infernalist leveling guide. It's pretty dope, check it out on Mobalytics, link in the description. I think it's one thing if you want to follow a guide because you're just not interested in the build making aspect of the game. I think that is completely fine. But if you are interested in that and you have a basic understanding of the skills and you do what the game is basically telling you to, meaning combo gameplay, picking up remnants, using skills for the payoff, and you still feel the build just barely makes it through the campaign, I think it's fair to say that it's not the person's fault at this point, but it's the skills and the balance. This is from the perspective of someone who's played Path of Exile 1 an awful lot, but if I compare this to Path of Exile 1, I am hearing that same complaint in Path of Exile 1, but in my experience, having done some wheel builds over there, and having played a lot and many different builds at that, you can make it out of the campaign and into red maps with basically any skill. It's very different, I would say. You can't compare that to Path of Exile 2 and say skills are not viable in Path of Exile 1. I think Path of Exile 1 is much harder to get into, right? I mean, the skill tree alone is something else over there. But if you just pick a skill and you kinda know what you're doing, you can make it work. And I don't feel the same applies in this game. The question typically is in Path of Exile 1 if you can run pinnacle content or not. That is what people refer to when they talk about if skills are viable. They want to know if it farms tier 16s comfortably, perhaps. But in Path of Exile 2, I feel too many skills, in my opinion, are just pure suffering. I hope that is something they'll look into down the line. Back to Jamanra, you've been watching the fight, and yes, it does take quite a long time. This guy has a lot of life, but I have enough life and energy shield of my own to survive his heavy attacks, and after 5 minutes or so he bites the dust, beheaded by the Sekema. And that's also the end of this episode. I'm writing this pretty much directly after this kill. I will do Act 3 and 4 next and maybe a bit more and see if the build holds up. And hopefully soon I will have another episode for you all. I'm sorry for the delay in content, but I wanted to perfect my leveling guide, so I ran the whole campaign on 2 different Infernalists, made sure the skills and support gems are correct. I didn't give in to OP Spectres, but I kept it simple to avoid the nerf hammer, and I'm quite happy with the result. And people seem to like the build, so that's good. This is also evergreen content for the rest of 0.3, providing me with a bit of income too from ad revenue, so that's nice too. From now on, however, I do expect I'll be making just YouTube videos again, so thanks for sticking around and making it to the end. I appreciate it. So I'll be soon back for some more sightseeing, tourist traps, unleashing our inner tourist, and until then, love you all. See you soon. Bye bye.